Nestled in the dells of Middle-earth, beyond the stone arches and down winding paths laden with leaves of gold and emerald, there lay a small village named Oakendale. From the porch of the inn, the Bountiful Badger, the dozen or so houses scattered around gave the place a dreary charm. The inn's owner, a grumpy but lovable dwarf named Brogar, was known for serving the best mutton stew this side of the Misty Mountains. One crisp night, as the stars fluttered in the inky sky, Brogar stood on the porch, staring at the hue of the moon casting a pallid glow over the village. His mind was filled with concern. A series of skirmishes with the local band of orcs had left the village vulnerable. The once brimming storehouses were now drenched in dreary silence, their resources nearly depleted. As Brogar was lost in thought, a shadowy figure strode away from the forest toward the inn. It was Edwin, an elf of noble blood, with hair the color of spun silver and eyes that could pierce darkness. She had been on a quest to gather allies and resources to help defend Oakendale. Brogar, Edwin said, her voice like the song of the lark, we must gather ourselves, for the ensuing battle will be unlike any we've faced before. Brogar sighed heavily, gazing at the moon. You're right, lass, but with our supplies dwindling and spirits worn, I fear we may not stand a chance. Just then, a young hobbit named Marin scuttled up the stairs to the porch, nearly tumbled down in his haste. I've heard news from the forest, he panted. A group of dwarves, laden with crocks of supplies and barrels of ale, have been spotted. They're heading this way. Hope fluttered in Edwin's heart. This could be the bounty we need, she said. But we must proceed with caution. It could be a trap. The ensuing hours were spent in lively discussion and strategizing. Edwin, Brogar, and Marin gathered as many villagers as they could, preparing for either a joyous welcome or a dreadful skirmish. As the crisp night grew deeper, the villagers' yearnings for safety and peace seemed almost fleeting in the face of uncertainty. Dawn broke, casting a golden hue over the dells. The villagers, now fully alert, sighed with relief as they saw a group of ragged but determined dwarves approaching, led by a stout dwarf named Thrain. They were indeed laden with crocks of medicine, barrels of ale, and packets of mutton, just enough to fortify Oakendale. Brogar's face crinkled into a rare smile. Thrain, you blundering fool! What took you so long? He said, clapping him on the back. Orcs, Thrain replied, his face sober. We had to fend off a skirmish or two, but we managed to keep the supplies intact. With the supplies distributed, the villagers' spirits lifted, preparing for the ensuing conflict. Edwin took heed to station guards around the village's periphery, while Brogar ensured everyone had a warm meal and Marin fetched fresh water from the nearby stream. The bleak silence of the forest was a stark contrast to the bustling activity within Oakendale, and Edwin couldn't help but linger on a specific memory. The last glare of the sunlight hitting her childhood home before it was seized by darkness. As dusk fell, the first tread of Orcish feet was heard. The battle was indeed upon them. Edwin led the charge, her silver blade grazing the fleeting shadows that lunged at her. Brogar hefted his lump of a war hammer, sending orcs flying into the cradles of the trees. Even Marin, barely of age, fought with a fierce determination that belied his size. For hours, the clash of metal and the thumping of bodies filled the air. The acridity of burning would stung their noses as fires erupted around them. It seemed almost hopeless until the bounty of Oakendale revealed its final gift, a hidden cache of ancient weapons and artifacts. As droves of orcs fell, Edwin stumbled upon a scut covered in moss and lichen that revealed an ancient elven sword. With it, she cut through the final waves of their enemies, her spirit brimming with the hope of victory. When the ensuing battle ended, Oakendale stood, though not unscathed. Homes were charred, and the forest edge was a blackened memory of its former self. But the village lingered on, its people, though ragged and worn, united by a shared victory. Brogar, now more than just the grumpy innkeeper, had new respect for his role as a leader. Edwin, wiping the sweat and blood from her face, felt a spark of hope that had long been withered. The bleak night is over, she said to the villagers gathered around the inn. But our resilience, our unity, has ensured the bounty of better days. Villagers cheered, though their voices were hoarse and their bodies worn. They began the task of rebuilding, cradling the hope that had been reignited. Oakendale, once more, stood as a beacon of endurance in the face of adversity, its people yearning for a brighter future. And thus, the village of Oakendale continued, its history marked by yet another tale of bravery, unity, and hope.